Okay, we're live. Okay, let's do this. Three, two, one. Welcome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Thanksgiving holiday special. This is. Let's do that again. Yeah, it's a bad day. Three, two, one. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Security on the In30 Network. We have two real news articles and an article that we found somewhere dispersed on the internet, but it's still really good, and you're going to hear a debate probably in about 15 minutes. So let's start off with Sony getting hacked again. Now, this is the third time that not that we've reported on Sony getting hacked, but this is now the third time that Sony had to have egg on their face and say, guys, we have a problem. So, Tom, you heard about this today?
Yeah, just briefly, actually. So I haven't had time to actually dig in and see what it's all about. Apparently there's something with North Korea, a plot to kill their leader, and a Hollywood movie all tied up in this.
So, surprisingly, I saw this on CNN 3 days ago. Between the Michael Brown verdict on loop 24/7, something about ISIS, and a lot of Wolf Blitzer, somebody said that they did a 3-minute puff piece on Sony getting hacked. I didn't think too much of it. I mean, they're saying North Korea is behind it, and we go from there. But basically, the biggest bottom line issue is that it didn't affect users, or it did, but we don't know that yet. They're saying that whoever hacked them went after unreleased movies and are trying to put it out there on the Pirate Bay as some sort of retaliation attack. So the good thing is just having a PSN account this time doesn't get you anywhere.
It doesn't seem like something a state-sponsored attack would go after. I don't think America is hacking China to get, unreleased Chinese movies or anything like that. This is very strange.
Well, I'm going to link the Wired article in the show notes. It's a long article, but it goes into details. And the first thing they're saying, North Korea. And the reason is that Seth Rogen and James Franco are doing some sort of spoof on being CIA operatives trying to kill the North Korean leader. And publicly, he's come out and said they want to take him down, and everyone just rolls their eyes and says, yeah, okay. And North Korea says, we're going to put grave and immediate threats into place, and everyone says, yeah, okay. You're going to Photoshop some nuclear weapons on a tank and say, yes, we're going to get you. So that's the, and today they came out not denying it. So they didn't come out and say, no, we have no idea. They're just keeping quiet about it, which gives people to believe that they could be behind it.
One of the amazing things I've heard about this, and it's we'll see, because this is all still pretty fresh. Not bleeding edge, but it's still pretty fresh. We'll see what happens when all the facts come out, but rumor has it that they've exfiltrated terabytes of data, that these attackers took terabytes of data and moved it across the internet under Sony's nose. How do you... is somebody watching the network graph and going, those secret servers we put all of the unreleased secret content on that's really top secret and should be protected? For some reason, there's been a couple terabytes of downloads recently. I don't know what's going on. You'd think people would be monitoring this, or they'd have a graph or some sort of flashing red light that says, hey, something's not really normal.
What, 100 terabytes of data? That's a lot.
That's an insane amount of data. I couldn't imagine pushing that amount of data over the internet, especially across countries.
That's 50 people on a Black Friday line, 100 terabytes of data, buying hard drives. But, that goes against your Comcast cap. The ISP probably would have said something.
Yeah, if the figure is, because I just saw the word terabytes, if the figure is 100 or hundreds of terabytes, there's no way this isn't a state-sponsored attack. I mean, no ISP. I know my ISP doesn't have data caps, but if I pulled down 10 terabytes or more in a month, I'd be getting a phone call.
I mean, Verizon had an article 8 months ago that said something like, "You want to know who these people are that downloading? Here are some like dossiers." They're saying someone was pulling 1 terabyte a month. Those are the people. So you're capped at 250 gigs. We're looking, and people are pulling a terabyte, 2 terabytes, 10 terabytes in a month. And this is why we want to limit traffic. And of course, we all looked at it and said, you know what, that's not our problem. But 100 terabytes. And I don't think they're doing it. They're doing it a week at a time. I think this was somebody said, let's go, and saw how fast they can download it.
I mean, even 100 terabytes over a month, that's a huge amount of data. I think now on my connection, because I do a lot of statistical analysis on my network, because I'm a nerd and I love numbers and graphs. I've got 3 people living in this apartment who love Netflix, and we do 1 terabyte a month on average. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but that's about the average. And we're constantly pulling down Netflix data. We're streaming movies off of Amazon and Google Play. You know, it's a lot of big stuff. And then I do a lot of work with Linux operating systems, and I'm constantly pulling down ISOs and everything else. And then on top of that, we've got offsite backup. But yeah, it's blowing my mind. I'm trying to figure out how you get hundreds of terabytes of data out of a network without someone noticing.
Yeah, and you just keep on going. Then they're saying maybe Russia's behind it because they're with sanctions. But here's the thing: Sony is a Japanese company, I think.
Yes.
I mean, they have obviously the roots in the United States, and they're one of the big 5 things. But deep down, it's a Japanese company. I mean, they're saying Sony. Maybe they're meaning Sony US or what is it? Trying to figure out why someone would go after Sony specifically. I mean, yes, they have the movie and everything else, but
it doesn't fit in with the North Korean narrative. But could they just go after Sony because Sony has typically been an easy target for hackers? Because their security has typically been pretty poor in recent memory. A couple years ago, when the big PlayStation Network hack went down, when LulzSec decided to take Sony for everything they were worth, it came to light that their security was almost non-existent in certain branches of the company.
I mean, the next people here are the Russian government because of sanctions for their invasion of Ukraine, and then maybe Iran. But again, it's one of those we can speculate because there's nothing released. It's not like it was in Pastebin. It's not like anywhere we know where this data is. Maybe they're pulling and they're sorting through it, but it looks like nobody knows who this is, and this has now been a few days. And
yeah.
Sony told everyone, go home. We got to figure this out.
This is very odd, and I'm sure it'll happen exactly like what happened with LulzSec after they hit a target, and they'll be trying to figure out what happened and what bus hit them for the next couple weeks. So we're going to have to be patient on this one until some real facts emerge.
So, but it's crazy to see, like you said, 100 terabytes. Basically, all the keys that they have. I mean, it doesn't look like they stole any user data, but I mean, if you're an employee for Sony, all your data now is gone.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say if they have a backup or anything else, but the information is out. So we go from there. So that's our first story. I mean, is there anything else left on it? I mean, hopefully we'll find out in the next week or so, but...
Yeah, I don't think we have really any... at least we don't have a lot of hard data to go on right now. I don't want to, wax on poetically like CNN does, and they pick one story and they'll cover it for the next 6 years, just talking about the same stuff without any actual hard data. So we'll come back to it when we've got some information.
That's the great thing of only having to fill half an hour. Okay, the next one is the next story again deals with passwords, and there's actually been a lot of password news, sort of. And I mean, Google just released some sort of anti-captcha movement and everything else. I mean, an hour or two ago I saw, but either way, more password stuff. So we'll link this, but in the New York Times, there was on Sunday's New York Times, there was an expose on. It was called The Secret Life of Passwords, and it starts off with Howard Lutnick. He was the chief executive of Cantor Fitzgerald during 9/11. So he had an office in the towers, and what's it called? The plane knocked it out, destroyed everything, killed everybody, but they needed their data. And I don't know why a CEO, that's the first thing on his mind. And he goes through saying, look, obviously I feel for everybody and myself and everything else, and I'm alive, and I'm happy that I was out at a meeting that day, but we need this information. And they have to go through, and how do you get this information when everything's under rubble and everyone is dead? And they go through the story basically saying that they had to call up on Microsoft and say, hey, we need you to brute force this. Oh, but by the way, we don't have a lot of time to waste, because every day we waste, we're losing millions of dollars. So, Tom, what do we do with this? I mean, it's a problem.
The story, while there's some interesting tidbits of information in this, I have a lot of issues with how they went about it. The first thing they turn to is brute forcing these passwords, or trying to use common passwords to get into these machines. And honestly, that's the wrong way to go about it. Now, I could be wrong. I didn't see anywhere in this story that said these computers were encrypted.
No, we didn't. No encryption.
So why don't they just take the hard drives out and plug them into another computer, and then just pull off the data? Like, that's literally the easiest way to go about it. And on a Windows system, on any system that's not encrypted, at least right now, there is literally nothing that's stopping you from plugging in a drive from another computer and dragging the data over and copying it. There's nothing that prevents that. So why was there such haste? Why was there such a need to get these passwords? It seems the passwords are kind of ancillary things. You don't really care about them, you care about the data. And the data is really easily accessible.
Well, let's look at, that aside. Let's say, I don't know why they couldn't do it. Maybe let's
just say they can't. Just to go along with the story, let's say they can't for some reason. Let's imagine the drives are encrypted, and they need a password.
And it's saying here, Cantor Fitzgerald did have extensive contingency plans in place, including the requirement that all employees tell their work passwords to 4 nearby colleagues. So we were talking about that, I don't know, a long, long time ago, where how do you get your data once you pass on in your will? And we said, well, give parts of your password to a few different people and say 3 or 4 need to come together in order to decrypt your hard drive or your LastPass store or whatever else. And they're saying here that they actually did that. The problem is that they all died. So which is obviously unfortunate. Now they still need this information. No one in those days had ever thought that an entire 4 to 6 blocks radius being destroyed. Remember, this is in 2001.
It was virtually unheard of in this country. Nothing like that had happened in...
Did we have a cloud yet? I don't think we had a cloud yet.
I mean, there were certain types of online storage, but nothing significant enough and nothing fast enough that you could take your data and put it somewhere and get it back easily. Well, I mean, yeah, you could email yourself something, but that's really about it.
I mean, you have to remember, this is XP just started.
Yeah.
Maybe it was in its first year. So most of these companies were still on probably NT4, or Windows 2000.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to go all the way back there. And I mean, then the rest of the story goes on to say that when they started recovering them, most people did the right thing and had pretty substantial passwords for the time. Uh, and then it goes into the psychology of choosing passwords, where the guy goes around and talks to the family members. I guess the idea was they needed it quickly. So when you brute force, you're testing every letter. But if you can somehow write some sort of script that tests all the family members first, all their birthdays, all the combinations of those, and we've talked about this, and there's a lot of articles documenting this. So he went around to as many families as he could in this grieving period and said, "Can you help us?" And they found out that a lot of people do, in fact. I mean, we knew this, and we don't need 5 pages in the Sunday paper to tell you this, but people were choosing their birthdays, their family members, everything else.
Yeah, the names of pets. There's a couple novel examples in here of things I wouldn't have thought of, but things that actually meant something really personal to people. And sometimes you see that in passwords. Sometimes you see really good passwords. And you think, well, how did this person come up with this? And this article goes through some of the mental hurdles people have went through to make these passwords, and it's really interesting to read. Now, at this time, or soon after this time, I know that rainbow hashes or rainbow tables became fairly popular as a means to get into Windows machines, and that if you had a password that wasn't too complex, you could easily compare the Windows hash against a rainbow table and get the password from that and be able to log in. Yeah, I guess that wasn't too popular at this time, because some of the passwords described here would have been cracked in a couple hours using a rainbow table. It's interesting.
You're right. I mean, again, you have to take this. This is This is a long time ago, 13 years ago. So I mean, you have to think about what the technology was back then.
Yeah.
And where we are today. And remember, we double roughly every 18 months. So I mean, to be honest, it's like saying I have this. They had 8-character passwords back then, and that was really secure back then. And it was good for Cantor Fitzgerald to say, you know what, your passwords have to be 8 characters. And basically everything we rail against today was in full force there, but they had 8-character passwords. And Microsoft probably was this the first time they had to really figure out on how to brute force a whole company's list of passwords.
Yeah.
So.
And I imagine I would really like to see to have an interview or a story done about Microsoft at that time, or the people that were talked to at Microsoft at that time. What do you say? If you're Microsoft and someone says, hey, we have all these boxes, we need to brute force it, what can you do? What did they do? Did they say, here, give us the hashes and we'll work on them? Did they say, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do because they're hashed? I mean, now we know now that Windows passwords are trivial to crack. Was that the case back then? And it's 2004. Yeah, I can or not 4. Probably I want to say around 2006. Yeah, things got pretty trivial to crack. 2001, I don't know. Frankly, I don't know. But it's an interesting article, and we'll link it in the show notes, and it goes into some of the psychology behind passwords and how people make passwords. And I can't say that it's bad advice. I can't say that it's good advice. I would suggest today that you don't make a password at all. That you use a password manager of some kind.
And again, nobody thought of password managers back then.
Exactly.
So, well, I want to say the rest of the show. I accidentally didn't start the clock, so I'm assuming we started at 8:30, which leaves us about 10 minutes to talk about to actually argue about the final topic here. And it comes from the Swift on Security Twitter page, which if you're not following, you absolutely must follow, at Swift on Security, or better known as InfoSec Taylor Swift. And there is a reason why they chose Taylor Swift. I don't remember. But somebody sent me an article about a character named Jessica. This is from September 28th. And I'm sure all the details about Jessica's life are completely made up, but the story is true. Jessica is 17 years old. She lives at home, and she uses a laptop. She doesn't care about the computer at all. She just uses it to get on the internet and do her work. Get on Facebook, write her papers, and every step of the way, Jessica faces some sort of security or some problem with the computer that she knows nothing about. But every single time, something becomes more important, whether it's the date she's going on or her biology homework or something else. And she basically ends up distrusting the computer, and she just doesn't know what to do. And the final question basically here is, whose fault is that? And Tom and I differ on the answer to that. I think I'm paraphrasing this correctly.
Yeah, that's about accurate. This is probably the first time in the show when we've actually substantially disagreed on a topic that comes to security. And listeners, this will be the perfect opportunity for you to email us, tweet us, whatever you can, get in touch with us and tell us what you think. Who wins?
I mean, it's my topic is my side of the story, and obviously read the article first before you email us. Get the full story, because we've read it. It's on the lengthy side, but it hits every single point that Tom deals with on a daily basis, and I deal on almost on a weekly basis with people and not knowing their computers. You just came home from Thanksgiving, helping your family members fix everything, and I think this will hit home, and you can say, well, I had to deal with this, and yeah, whose fault is it? So I take from it is that I think this is Jessica's fault. I think that she doesn't care enough to learn about the computer, and I almost feel like saying, you know what, you don't care enough. You choose to not deal with this, so therefore you need to, if you have to go pay someone to fix it, I think that's your choice. You chose not to learn how to secure your computer. You chose not to learn how to read when something came up. You chose not to do this. And in return, you're going to have a computer that's going to be filled with malware, and you're going to have to just kludge it until it works, until you figure out something to solve it.
And in my opinion on the whole thing, and I understand where you're coming from, and I think that's a completely logical and reasonable thing to think. But my thoughts on it is that, the developers, us, the creators of the software, the creators of the operating systems and the websites we use, we did this to ourselves. It's our fault. It's really our fault. It's not Jessica's fault that, there's an example of a story that she goes to a website and tries to download this password manager or this piece of software someone told her to get because it'll help protect her or something, and she clicks this big flashing green button that says download now, and it takes her to a completely different website, and maybe that website installs malware on her computer or something else. We've all seen the banner ads when we go to download something from CNET or Download or any other of those download sites where that hosts software. There's ads all over the place with big flashing download buttons, and you got to hunt around for the right one. We know about that because we're tech nerds, because we deal with this stuff. Normal people don't know, don't care, or a combination of those. And frankly, it's not their job to. Ads like that should be banned.
Well, the biggest egregious one is installing Java.
Yeah.
This doesn't work. Install Java, and then Java has a notorious checkbox to install whatever the de facto toolbar is of the month. It's been the ask.com toolbar for the last few years, but everyone forgets. Now, it's trivial to go to add remove programs and uninstall it, but I don't expect the average person to do that.
The average person doesn't know what add remove programs is. Frankly, the average person doesn't know how to use Windows. The average person today knows how to use the basic functions of Chromebook. They know how to get to, they either click on the blue E, or they click on the little fox guy, or they click on the weird circle thing, and they can type in facebook.com. That's what the average person knows, and in my opinion, if that's all they're doing, that's all they should need to know. That's all they should care about. And yeah, there are other things they can learn, and it's our job as security people to teach people, to make them better at computers and better at protecting themselves. And I don't think we should stop that, but we're fixing symptoms. We're not actually fixing the root problem, which is, look, Java shouldn't have an ASC toolbar associated with it. We should, boycott, sue, whatever. We should take torches and pitchforks to Oracle and demand that they get rid of that, because that's a shady and horrible thing to do. We should petition Google and say, look, when somebody tries to make an ad, you can clearly see, because they run everything through image processing anyway, you can clearly see that it's a green thing, it's a green button, and it says download. You should ban the ad outright and ban their AdSense account permanently and shut them down, because that's not right. You're actively tricking people, and it doesn't make Google look good. It doesn't make any of these ad providers look good. It makes some money, but it's really morally reprehensible.
Well, I want to go back to Jessica, and I want to go. So you're saying that, and you're right, that the average person, that's all they really know how to do. And my point of contention is why? Why is that we say how great the internet is. We want the latest and greatest iPhone. We want X, Y, and Z. But why don't we ever take the 45 minutes or the hour that it takes to learn how to use these things? If Jessica spent not 1 minute, but took some time and said, hey, what is this? What am I doing? Not what I heard before, but what am I doing? I think she would have been better. And the best example I have for this is in the car. Most people don't know how to do a car. They see a light, they take it to the mechanic. And I look at that. Something's blinking, you don't know what it is. You call up, unfortunately, the Geek Squad. You pay them some money, and they fix it. But if all you did is if you Google the image of what that little thing is, it'll probably say, oh, oil, you need an oil change. Somehow we learned that. Somehow over the years, somebody told us that. Why isn't it the same on the computer?
Yeah, and actually, I do agree with you. I think, especially in early school days, for kids everywhere, we should be teaching them about critical problem solving and thinking and research in the modern era. When something pops up on my computer, when I get an error message, I go to Google and I type in the error message exactly how it appears, and within the first 3 results, I'm going to have my answer. Now, I know some people, some normal people with normal day jobs that aren't tech nerds. One of them still has a flip phone. They can do that, and they have done that, and they fix their problems a lot of the time. And unless it's something truly bad, I don't have to go in and fix it. And we should be teaching people that. That's a fantastic skill. But Windows is a little too powerful for your average user today. Windows has far too many features. People don't care about a file system. Even stuff as basic as that, when you think of a computer, people don't care about a file system. They don't care about folders or organizing something or stuff in a start menu. They want their computer to work like an iPhone. They want to go to a place and get some apps and click some stuff, and then sometimes they want to go to Facebook. And maybe if they get really crazy, they want to upload a photo to Facebook, and that's really the technical limitation of what they want to do.
I love this one. So we use, you and I, both of us, use the iPhone as the easiest smartphone to learn, and I think that's correct. I think if for the average person, remember, if you're gonna what's it called, recommend the phone to somebody, be ready to support it, because you're the first person they call. Doesn't matter how many times the people at Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile say, we'll be right here. That one, they won't be right there, and 2, no one wants to drive there or call them up. So you're the first line of defense. And for a lot of people, I do say an iPhone. They go, but you're an Android person. Yeah, I am, because I know what I'm doing. And I say, if you're not going to spend the time to learn it, the iPhone is the best one. But here's the thing. People don't know how to use their iPhones either. And the iPhones are tremendously complicated to a person who wants to use the 4 basic functions at the bottom. Like how to get on Facebook, like upload a photo. How do you get the photos off your iPhone. Nobody thought of that. That's not easy.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I mean, even something as simple as, my grandmother wants to put her photos that she takes with her digital camera onto Picasa on the web on her Chromebook. And for all this tech, I was just like, yeah, you go to browse and you go to the SD card and then you highlight everything and you shift click the top and bottom and you hit upload. And then you delete it afterwards to save space. But that's a really hard concept for most people. I think we could be better at technology, and it scares people to death, but I honestly believe this. I believe in general purpose computing. I love general purpose computing. I love getting, a processor and a hard drive and some RAM and some other stuff and throwing it together and saying this box can be a gaming console. It can be a media center. It can be just a web browser. It can be anything I want it to be. And I love that as a tech nerd. But most people don't want that. They don't want the engine that could be a lawnmower or a car or a jet plane. They want a refrigerator. They want a microwave. They want to hit 3 buttons and go to Facebook and click like and poke their buddy and have that be it. And I think we should be building better, more secure appliances.
What about this one? Use the refrigerator example or use the microwave example. Nobody knows how to set the. Remember the VCR? No one knew how to set the clock on the VCR, and nobody cared. They didn't care, or they went and their toaster had all these. Oh, do you know how to use convection on the toaster? No, I just push the button down. I just use it for toast. And sometimes I want to strangle these people, not I mean literally, but I want to grab them and say, what's wrong? You have all these features there. Don't just choose something based on the features. Choose it by what you're going to use it for. And
right.
and for me, and we go back, just take the toaster or the microwave example. Microwave can do a lot of things. And I'm going to admit that I don't know how to do a lot of stuff on the microwave, but then again, my wife does. So as long as one of us knows how to do it, I feel, and I don't cook, so and I'm very thankful that she cooks for me. But there you go. And if you're the tech, and here's the thing, if you're not going to want to learn to use something, I feel that you shouldn't complain when it costs you money.
Yeah. If you go out and you buy a $600 Toshiba and you are using it for just Facebook and you download email attachments or you click on something you shouldn't and you install a really nasty piece of malware, you're going to have to pay for someone or get a piece of software or do a bunch of research. It's going to cost you either time or money or sometimes both to make it right. I think I don't blame the user for that. I blame computing society as a whole. We shouldn't be selling those people full operating systems.
And you know what? And I hate to say, maybe this is why people gravitate towards Macs. I mean, they're very cliched. Macs don't get viruses, which is not true.
Right.
But it's so limited.
It's too expensive for.
I got that.
It's so much more expensive than just going out and buying a computational appliance or going out and buying. I'd rather someone go out and buy an iPad than a MacBook if all they're going to do is
Oh, absolutely. And then buy a MacBook or buy an iPad. Then you look at it. How many dings at the Geek Squad, which you should absolutely never use. Find somebody else.
Yeah.
Find anybody else.
There's lots of local computer places and lots of local nerds that you can throw your money at, and they're going to be cheaper and better.
And they'll probably do it most of the time, if you're willing to learn, they'll do it free, to be honest with you. But they will, and then you say $200 here, $200 there, $200 there. There's $600 on your $600 Toshiba. There you go. It's the same thing. But the barrier to entry is so much higher, and you don't need it. If you spent the 45 minutes it took you to research the problem, you would have solved it. And then that $600 Toshiba is a monster of a device. If you don't have to run all these adwares and malware blockers and you get rid of the malware, that computer screams. But
not to mention the hardware, because if you go out and you buy the first thing you see on the shelf, you might be buying a lemon. And there are no lemon laws when it comes to computers. You might be buying something that falls apart in 3 months and no one cares. Then you have to go back to the store and drop another $600 and walk away with another computer that's going to fall apart in 3 more months.
But just to wrap up, I mean, we could talk about this for hours, but
Yeah.
and we want you to if we get enough we're hoping to get enough comments so we can spend next week or the week after show really talking about it. But whose fault is it that these things are so hard? I mean, I enjoy it. My wife enjoys it. You and your wife enjoy, for the most part, using the computers, so we get it. But it whose fault is this? And I see both sides. I really think more 51% is Jessica's fault for not realizing that if you're going to use this and you don't want to learn, expect some consequence on the backside.
Yeah, and I see the other side of it, which is, Jessica's only in this situation because we've made the tools too hard. We've made the barrier to entry too high. We shouldn't have sold Jessica a Camaro. We should have sold her a tricycle.
I mean, it's almost. I mean, I wish there was a way to get a whole bunch of Raspberry Pis and say, if you want to go on Facebook, here's your Facebook. If you want to go on Word, it's preloaded, has one button, and all you have and have the monitor just like move based on which one you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can set her up with virtual machines that have one icon on each, and each icon takes her to a different VM. But then who wants to troubleshoot that? Remember, and I say this all the time to people: if you're going to recommend technology, be ready to troubleshoot it.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
my grandmother's Nexus, I've spent more time with that device than I have my own phone.
Yeah. And that's why you recommended a Nexus, because you have a Nexus and you know exactly which buttons to push.
Exactly.
So, okay, anyway, I don't know what time we're at. I'm assuming we're over, but until next week, we will see you then.
See you guys.
Bye.